we've raised concerns for weeks. Now prosecutors have opened a criminal investigation into Baltimore City Council President Nick Mosby and State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby. We bring you the latest.
Federal criminal investigation targeting Baltimore City State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby and her husband, City Council President Nick Mosby.
Mayor Brandon Scott presents his State of the City. We break down what he said and what he left out.
My administration is increasing Baltimore's capacity to fight crime.
After The Bachelor contestant Rachel Kirkconnell worked to get the final rose, Bachelor Matt James breaks up with her because he feels she has to work on the other R, racism.
When I questioned our relationship, it was on the context of you not fully understanding my blackness.
And ousted host Chris Harrison hires a high-powered attorney as he plans to let out all the show's secrets. We cut through the weeds in this garden and bring you the facts. Should Oregonians pay thousands each year in reparations to descendants of enslaved people? That's the question Oregon lawmakers addressed this month in 2 Senate bills. We discuss.
You can bring up issues and then discover just how you might resolve those issues.
And lastly, have you missed former President Trump on social media? Not to worry, he is returning to social media in a few months with his own platform. We'll bring you all the details of his comeback. Pop and Politics starts now. Welcome to Pop and Politics, a show that highlights trending political news and pop culture. Each week, the ladies get together like girlfriends do to chat about the biggest local and national news stories. They all have varying backgrounds and personalities. One thing they share in common is they all lean on the conservative end of the political spectrum. Meet the ladies. KJ. T. Xandria. Shelly E. Hanalyn. Smart, edgy, and conservative. This is Pop and Politics. Let's get started. Hello. Yes, we are back. Today on Wednesday, it's a rainy Wednesday, but welcome to Pop and Politics. If you are watching on Facebook, please like and share this video. Also comment. We will be checking the Facebook page and your comments and responding to comments as the show goes on. So please watch and comment. If you're watching on YouTube, please like and subscribe to this video. That does get us, pushes us up on the YouTube, and so please continue to do that. All right, today's program is to you by Boy Kai Construction. Value, satisfaction, guaranteed by Boy Kai Construction. If you please call 443-825-7984. It's your one-stop shop for all your home improvement needs. Basement, remodeling, plumbing, construction, framing, all of that. Minor electrical, Boy Kai Construction. So it's value, satisfaction, Boy Kai. All right.
That's a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And also, it's minority owned and it's a small business.
Mm-hmm.
And please make sure to mention that you saw the ad on Pop and Politics to get a discount on your job.
Yes.
Wow. Look, I need some home. It's springtime. We got a lot of stuff coming up.
Spring cleaning, the spring flowers are starting to come up. There's a lot of work that needs to be done around people's houses, painting, roof repairs, anything. So, yeah, we've got our first official sponsor.
Yes, so definitely check it out.
We need more.
Yes. All right. So we'll get right into it. We are again starting off with the Mosby's investigation. So, Hanalyn,
Mosby, no problem.
Right. Mosby, no problem.
Hey, if the shoe fits. I mean, look, we started reporting on this. It's been at least 4 weeks ago, 4 or 5 episodes that we have been doing basically an ongoing series. And that's because more and more stuff just keeps coming out. And last week, KJ, you actually said it. Yeah, you said on the show that it looks like there is really something criminal that is going on. There's something unethical, and that there should be an investigation. And it wasn't but 1 day or 2 days later that the word came out. The Baltimore Sun reported they had obtained the subpoenas that had been delivered to Nick Mosby while he was presiding over a Board of Estimates
So that would have been on Thursday. Look at God.
Wow. Yeah.
Which I just think is so ironic that they served the subpoena to him while he was presiding over the Board of Estimates meeting, when that was part of the problem with Marilyn Mosby, was that she wasn't reporting her travel to the Board of Estimates. So talk about irony there.
Right.
But
isn't it ironic?
oh man, so we have been covering this in depth.
Yes, we
And now the feds are looking into it, or rather, I suppose they have been looking into it for some time. There have been some rumors that have people been hearing talk that these subpoenas were coming. So now it is official, and they subpoenaed the couple's tax returns, bank statements, spreadsheets, canceled checks, investment account statements, credit card statements, loan documents, phone contacts, as well as Marilyn Mosby's campaign finance reports, contribution deposits, expenses, and loans. They also issued subpoenas for 2 churches, Bethel AME and Union Baptist Church.
One church did not confirm or deny.
Yeah, their church is Psalmist.
What is the church?
Well, they're looking into fraudulent contributions that they've been claiming that they're making to the churches and then using as write-offs, improper tax write-offs. Yeah, so there's a lot.
House?
Oh yeah, yeah. So there's a lot. The Baltimore Brew was doing exclusive reporting on this since last summer, and a lot of the irregularities and discrepancies and the questionable financial dealings that the Baltimore Brew had been reporting on for coming up now in almost a year, serve as the basis for a lot of these, a lot of what the subpoenas are looking into.
And it's eerily kind of reminiscent of the things that happened with Catherine Pugh.
Yes.
She had her side business.
Right.
She was had the books and the consulting company, and then with the prosecutor that prosecuted Mayor Pugh is actually handling this case also.
Yeah, Leo Wise.
It's very unfortunate
because
I'm starting to see a pattern. I've been here, as a resident. I just moved here 15 years ago, and I've been looking and into the politics, and it's a pattern. Like all of the mayors and different types of government officials here, it's always the same thing. Like,
there's a cycle of corruption.
What I think is to do with money.
Yes, and what I think is really disheartening is the reaction to the charges, because a lot of the reaction, so Roland Martin came out on his show and he said that this was an improper race-based investigation.
Her lawyers, the Mosby's lawyers have said basically this is a witch hunt and it's based on race.
They said it's a political witch hunt because these were 2 prominent African-American politicians who were progressive activists. That's why they're being targeted.
I was just going to say, I wonder what his take on the whole going after Trump's taxes situation was, because
that's justified because it's going after Trump.
Right, exactly. Like as I was listening to the interview, as you mentioned, between on the Roland Martin Unfiltered show with attorney Scott Bolden, it's like he was justifying everything that they were doing, making it sound like, oh, it's no big deal. Just kind of a shrug over the shoulder. This was one thing he said. He was like, none of this went through any civil review process. We now have a criminal federal tax investigation, if you will, for people who make roughly only $200,000 a year, who are public servants and paid on tax dollars.
What?
I'm like, that's a lot of money.
That is a lot. First of all, that is a lot of money.
No one makes a lot.
That is $100,000
a year.
Mosby herself makes over $230,000 a year. I mean, well, they're both Mosby. Sorry, Marilyn Mosby herself makes over $200,000. She is the second highest paid public official. So she's making taxpayer money.
Exactly.
This is taxpayer taxpayer-funded salary that she's making. His salary is over $100,000. And then just the cognitive dissonance between saying,
well, that was his statement, right?
I know. But he's lying. Their attorney is lying. And when he said they don't make enough money to warrant an investigation into their finances. However, they just had these real estate purchases down in Florida, right? They were, what are the purchases?
$1 million.
They purchased the property in Kissimmee, Florida for $545,000 in September of last year. They purchased, and this was in September. In October, it came out that they had a $45,000 lien against their home in Baltimore for 3 years worth of unpaid taxes, but they're purchasing over a $500,000 property down in Florida. And then in February, they purchased a $476,000 property in Longboat Key. So which is it? They make enough money to do these purchases legally, or they don't make enough money, and then there's questions about
let's be clear to our viewers. So Hanalyn Mosby put down a deposit, a down payment, and then she mortgaged the balance. So theoretically,
it's a mortgage,
they didn't spend the $1 million flat out in cash. No, I just want to be clear to our viewers so that we won't be accused of being
let me jump in there if I could.
The truth.
So why should Baltimoreans care then? So how are we connecting the dots as far as why should we care?
What has been my biggest issue when we have been covering this is the fact that you have a prosecutor who seems more concerned about her real estate deals and her travel company, her non-existent travel company that nevertheless she's been using to write off her taxes. She seems more concerned with that and with jet setting around to European resorts than actually dealing with the crisis that is happening in Baltimore City and with her 56% conviction rate. And when you talk about fuzzy math, it's not just relegated to her financial reports. It also applies to the way that she is trying to manipulate the statistics and the case facts in order to present her conviction rate, because she claims her conviction rate is 92%. But when you actually look at the numbers and you use the same metrics that have been applied to past prosecutors, her conviction rate is an abysmal 56% for felony cases.
And I want to add,
so she's lying. She's fudging the numbers all around.
I want to add that apparently the mortgages that the Mosbys had taken out on these two properties in Florida, it looks like it could be fraud, because she signed the lease, or the agreement was that she would not rent out these properties, that she would live in them as a second home. And then she turns around and at least one of them is being rented. So she's earning a rental income. And I don't know, I didn't read this, but I can surmise that it's going through her businesses or Nick Mosby's businesses.
Well, they're looking into those businesses too.
Those
Mahogany, Elite LLC, Travel.
If you or I, basically lied on our mortgage, or to obtain a mortgage, these big, huge, balloon mortgages, if you will. If you or I lied to do that, we could be prosecuted. So we have to uphold the laws, or we are accountable to the laws. Then so should the Mosbys be accountable to the laws.
And it's not
originally, because when I heard about them purchasing the homes in Florida, and I was like, well, what's the problem? Because many people do that.
Yes.
So I was like, well, why is it a problem if they're purchasing homes as a family or as a couple?
Exactly.
Yeah, as a second, like, what was the issue? But I mean,
and not only that, but I think what people are missing is, and again, we don't know this. This is why the investigation was brought about, because there is something in either their personal business or the campaigns. There's something that's going on that the federal feds felt like they needed to investigate.
Well, she's already
admitted her campaign funds to pay her personal lawyer.
Again,
she admitted that. She conceded that.
Yeah, she used over $3,200 in campaign funds to pay for her legal defense with the IG investigation. She also paid a law firm in D.C. $11,000 out of campaign funds in order to issue a cease and desist letter to a previous employer.
And also $40,000 for a letter, or
$11,000 for a cease and desist letter. But she used her campaign funds, so that's also what they're looking at. And then Nick Mosby had an issue with $100,000 in missing campaign contributions on his financial reports during the election. So there are a lot of moving pieces here. There are a lot of things that are being investigated. And to your point about the mortgage fraud, it's not just that she said that she was going to use it for a second home, and she's not. Based on saying she was going to use it as a residence, she was able to get a $50,000 deduction in her down payment and a deduction in her interest rate.
Right, and that's just because generally, if you plan to live in a home, then the mortgage is going to be a lot less than whether if you were going to rent it out. And then with Nick Mosby, I have here again the Baltimore Brew reporting. He has himself as a CEO and sole owner of a consulting firm whose headquarters address is the same as one of the offices of his major campaign contributors. So he's received $12,750 from Samuel K. Himmelrich Jr. and his LLCs at the same address as he is using as his consulting firm.
And I think this brings up real ethical concerns, because if you have someone who is in office, he's the president of city council, he controls the budget, right? They're going to get another, what is it, $670 million that's coming in from this latest recovery act?
How much? Yeah, $670
million the city of Baltimore is getting. And you have someone who's overseeing the where is it going? And you have someone overseeing the budget who you cannot trust. There's no public trust, right? They have destroyed that at this point.
Also, in my opinion, for the attorney to be like, kind of brush it off like, oh, this is not a lot of money worth investigating. Well, at the end of the day, like you mentioned, if all of this money is funneling, good thing we're catching it early.
Yeah,
you know,
because
good thing it's not more than
a lot of the time when what you're catching, what you're seeing coming out first, just the trickle, there's a whole river coming behind it. So we don't know what's going to be coming down the pipe.
And we will continue to follow this story. I mean, just as you all have mentioned, and we said with Mayor Pugh, she started out saying this was a witch hunt.
Yes.
You know, this is nothing. This is a nothing burger. And then she is actually in jail right now. So we need to take this serious. Yes, she is. So we need to take this very seriously.
And so I just want Cheryl Glenn, one of the other delegates for Baltimore City.
So this is
Baltimore City has a history of mayors and corruption. I can't blame it on race.
No, and I just want to say very clearly, I think it is actually incredibly insulting to the black people of Baltimore City to say that black people in Baltimore do not deserve better. We have a majority black panel here, right? Everybody here on this panel, we all supported black candidates for city council, for mayor, for city council president in Baltimore City. So the idea, the accusation that is being lobbied that people want to take the Mosbys down merely because they do not want to see black people in power, I think it's insulting and offensive.
Okay.
It is.
That's
just the low expectations.
All right. So we'll continue to follow this. I want to say to the audience that, you know, we don't take this lightly and we don't find pleasure in this. Many of us on this panel are Baltimore City residents, and it's actually sad because we want our city to do well. And so when our leadership are found to be possibly doing things that are illegal, it hurts the city. And so that is why we continue to report on this and continue to follow it. So next we will move on to Brandon Scott's State of the City.
Right.
What is the state of the city right now?
Well, if you live in Baltimore, if you know anything about Baltimore, the state of the city, I would have to give it a D, maybe an F. Now
Brandon Scott said it was great.
Yeah, Baltimore overall is
How can you deny it? Has the potential to be an F.
So as we know, last week Mayor Scott gave his first State of the City address last Wednesday, I think it was. I'm not sure what day, but the 18th. But so I read through the speech and I made some, notes and marked it up a little bit. So these are some of the. Let me start with the positives. Okay, I found 2 positives that he mentioned.
Come on.
Good job, Shelly.
Give credit where it's due.
The city was going to have this system called Open Checkbook, talking about transparency and accountability.
How about that?
Yeah, so citizens can follow the money, right? Follow the money. It's only going to be as good as it's populated, of course. So the second good thing was talking about the tax sales of these abandoned properties or these rundown properties that need to be renovated. Maybe
a lot of them.
It's a lot of them. So those were 2 good things that Mayor Scott talked about. All of the rest, oh my gosh, these were some of the major themes that I found in his speech, his address. The one major theme was expansion. Expansion of what? Government.
Yes.
It was expansion of government. So they're new positions, government positions, new task force, new reform efforts, all of these are tied to government. So our government in the city is going to grow bigger, which means that they're going to be hiring people, more salaries, more taxpayer salaries.
We've already seen that with Nick Mosby.
Exactly. So
can you
he started
elaborate on that?
Oh, well, we talked about last week that Nick Mosby had just added staff, not only added staff, but then increased the salaries.
Right.
So again, he's had this mismanagement of funds.
More mismanagement. Again, so how is this going to be efficient? How is this going to affect or benefit Baltimoreans? There are new positions such as the city administrator, the new DPW director. Now, that may not be a new position. That's filling a position that was vacant. The new chief data officer, the new chief equity officer, the new director of broadband and digital equity. He has this new, the MONSA, the mayor's office of engagement, neighborhood engagement, the director. There's a new 911 diversion pilot program. And not to mention the new program that is going to have the guaranteed income for certain residents of Baltimore City.
With no work requirements.
With no work requirements. Not to mention, again, the new policy that's going to do away with drug testing for certain non-safety related city jobs, right? So this wave of guaranteed income, add this on top of the expansion. I didn't find anywhere that I've read in the last week or so how this guaranteed income pilot program is going to be funded. So off the bat, it's going to be taxpayers and homeowners in Baltimore City whose taxes are already high for the services that we don't receive, while we are still paying out the yin yang, right? We don't know where the money's going, but we do know that the city hall is constantly expanding.
Let me jump in there.
He said that we have a new vision. We're bringing people together no matter the cost.
Exactly.
No matter the cost. There's going to be an expansion of government, an expansion of government policies, and where is the money coming from, and where is it going, and
no
how
matter the
effective
cost
is it going to be?
Right.
The matter cost to us,
Right.
They got the funds.
Right.
Just,
So this wave of this guaranteed income, these pilots, so far they have taken hold or been implemented in Atlanta, Oakland, now Baltimore, and so I think Chicago, if I'm not mistaken, they're at least talking about doing that.
Now let me ask you about that, because I want to ask you. So why is it a bad idea to have these, or why do you believe it's a bad idea to have the guaranteed income?
So I think it's a bad idea if taxpayers have to foot the bill. Now, if private organizations want to donate their money to sponsor this, I'm all for it. That's your money, do what you want. But when taxpayers have to foot the bill, and again, I didn't find any information about who or how this program is going to be funded. So maybe it's going to be sponsored by private entities. But until we have this open checkbook, and we know where the money is going and coming from, I can only assume, best guess on historical, practices that taxpayers are going to foot that bill.
Now, as an idealist, I can see it sounds good. It sounds like, okay, well, we're trying to make sure that everyone gets paid, and we're in the city, and we know that people are, they need opportunities for work and for income, but is it really going to happen?
Exactly.
And is it really going to help? That's the thing, too, because all of these liberal policies, they're so emotion-based. They feel good.
And they sound good.
Yes. You want to provide an income to everybody. You want to be able to help everybody, but government can't do that. And government is so completely ineffective at doing that. And it actually is counterproductive.
You're going to think about it, we have a proxy for that already. We have the welfare programs. So those are already proxies. We already know that the welfare, it did not reduce dependency.
It increased
it, and it increased the cost that's being paid out. So we already have those programs. Almost every government program that you can think about that just gives people XYZ, it increases. It does not reduce. It does not reduce poverty. It doesn't reduce the dependency.
Now, Nick Mosby said when he did his introduction of the mayor, he said the policies have been the problem, but the policies will be the solution. And then he said, "We are your problem solvers." Again, it's just this ethos. It's this mentality of trust government. We are your caretaker. We are the nanny state. You can't do anything for yourself.
If that's not patriarchal, what is.
Yeah.
The last thing the city needs is more government. It really needs to be run by individuals in the city. And I just want to say, and let me state quickly that all opinions are my own, not my employer's, not related to anything like that. But you guys know, right? You guys know what I'm involved in with my for work, and I have personally reached out already, for instance, to the broadband equity director and others regarding things like bringing internet to the city of Baltimore. Thank you. So, I think one of the things that from all of my discussions with various individuals, including with a lot of developers in Baltimore, a lot of people that are really trying to build up developments for the people of Baltimore, not like gentrification, right? Because it's the touchy subject. So, a lot of these people have opinions, and I think that all of these elected officials should really hold a hearing where they welcome all criticisms of them so that they can hear really like what people working in the city think about how slow processes are.
Isn't that what town hall meetings are for?
Right, but I feel like you only hear the you only ever
You
really
want to
hear
focus
the
on
positives.
just
Like I
the
think they really need to be open to criticisms
You want
of
real
themselves.
feedback.
Yeah, and the way that things are executed. But anyways, going back to that, I've already reached out to certain individuals to help. Obviously I want to further a positive cause, so if they're able to support, then we love that. But it'll be interesting to see. There are already people and private groups in the city of Baltimore that have been working to further these causes for quite some time that would have benefited from the support of the city a long time ago. So it'll be interesting to see if it...
I just want to point out really quickly one other thing that he mentioned was that they are partnering with Everytown Safety, Everytown for Gun Safety, which is a Bloomberg-funded organization that basically is, the purpose of it is
supposed to be
it's a gun control organization, but it really is ultimately about taking away people's access or rights to own guns. And Bloomberg, again, is this rich white elite liberal who has said that he doesn't feel that black people are responsible enough to own guns. So just the idea that the city is partnering with Everytown.
So what you said, Xandria, you talked about how people need to come and we can influence Baltimore City. Well, Mayor Scott said that in his address, quote, "You can influence how decisions in City Hall are made." Well, Baltimoreans, please make your voice known, but then in saying that, my other side asked me, like you just asked earlier, well, why do we keep putting these people in office? Maybe, I had to face the fact that maybe this is what people in Baltimore really want.
No, they don't think. They just know. There's a vote down the party line. Democrat. So they're going to go with
I just have to play it in both ways, at least both in my mind, because I'm thinking that these patterns that we have seen over and over again, we keep expanding government, but we don't get our bang for the buck, so to speak. So I said, on the other side of my thinking, well, okay, maybe, is it possible that this is really what Baltimoreans want? Because this is what we collectively keep voting.
I was on the streets. When voters registration time last year for the election process, I was hearing the people, and they don't want that. But they don't want to vote.
Make a change.
They don't want to vote against Democrat. They don't want to vote against what they think is supposed to happen.
Well, I think it's a misplaced sense of loyalty. And Lady J, she was on She's show recently, and she was talking about this the other day, that people have a sense of loyalty to these politicians like the Mosbys, but we need to stop being loyal to corruption.
But it's the loyalty they have is largely based on race.
Yes, but that's the other thing. You're equating blackness then with corruption. You're saying we cannot expect black politicians to do better, and I believe that we can.
I know a lot of community activists on both party lines that really want the same thing, right? And I really think these groups need to just unite and stand up against the local city.
No, that's not.
One more thing.
Just on that note, I did want to say, just very quickly, just to piggyback off of what you said about the guaranteed income. I had a friend who volunteered to assist with a workforce development program in the city, where it was trying to get city residents jobs. And one of the ladies my friend was helping, he was helping to put together a resume, and he was helping her fill out the information to apply for a job. And so she's putting down all of her information, so, you know, her salary requests and things. And so he was like, I think she put down some crazy amount. It was like $4,000 or something like that, yearly salary. So he said to her, he was like, well, why'd you put that? He was like, don't you want more than that? And she was like, no. She was like, I would lose my food stamps. And she's like, I would lose my
it's a dependency.
And so he was like, yeah, but if you get a job and you make more, then you don't need that.
The dependency is not just financial dependency; it's also
laziness.
Mental.
Right, and she was just like, she was like, no, she was like, I don't want to lose I don't want to lose my benefits, so I'm just gonna put.
That's very sad.
Remember that for our other topic later.
So we will move on from that, but just wanted to share that with everyone. This is why we were talking about how that guaranteed income is not the best thing. So, all right, so we are moving on to The Bachelor. So something kind of a little different, change lanes. So we talked about this some time ago, but just want to give you guys a background. So while the season was airing, we're talking about the show The Bachelor. So while the season was airing, Instagram photos surfaced from 2018 that showed Kirkconnell, who is one of the lady contestants. She's 24 at a plantation themed party. Before she apologized, host and executive producer Chris Harrison defended her in an interview on Extra, asking former Bachelorette who was hosting this show, Rachel Lindsay, if the photos were a problem or if it was just because they were looking at them with a 2021 lens. A comment that rubbed many the wrong way. So Chris also urged viewers to show Rachel a little grace, understanding, and compassion. He was let go from The Bachelor for his stance. Then on the show, Rachel emerged as an early frontrunner. She and Matt, who is The Bachelor, were clearly attracted to each other from the start, and they built a connection on their one-on-one dates. Rachel was the only contestant Matt told he was falling in love with throughout the whole season.
He's cute too.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if we have the clip where he. So not sure if you guys are following it, but he pretty much told her that he apologized, but he just didn't want, he had selected her and then said he didn't want to have anything to do with her because of her being in this photo of the antebellum.
So has ripped them apart.
Yeah, well, I don't understand it because they're on the show. He's having a good time with her, getting to know her. Apparently, he liked her. He actually said he was in love with her.
Well, he chose her.
Right, he chose her.
They were together.
Right.
Because of the picture.
And
then the picture came out.
He doesn't want the negative repercussions of social media on him.
So he's a punk.
But he's not only, he totally busted.
Right,
he was like, he said she doesn't understand his blackness. I think it was.
He doesn't want to be an Uncle Tom.
Yes, right. He felt the pressure from the woke mob, and he caved. And I think it's so cowardly. It's so cowardly because you're talking now about not just condemning somebody else on social media. You're talking about someone that you had a personal relationship with, somebody that you said that you loved. And what he said to her when he broke up with her on air was, he said, first of all, this was funny, when I'm in a relationship, I'm committed to that person. But I'm not committed to actually going through this with you. He said, it's problematic that you don't understand my blackness. This is work that you need to do. I didn't sign up to have this conversation, and I don't want to be emotionally responsible for your tears.
Wow. Wait, so first of all, he can't, that's hypocritical, because if he's going to be with someone of another race in the first place, he can't even come like, oh, you don't understand my blackness. I don't want to have
conversations about...
you don't understand my blackness because you're not black. But, so, where does this even come up?
But apparently he saw something in her initially to even...
Right.
So what is the blackness? Why does that... Right. Why does all of that... Why is all that disregarded? That, to me, that's no different than, I don't know, some of you, I know I have been unfriended because of my political stances, even to people that I have been friends with for over 30 years. But so none of that matters, right? Our relationship didn't matter, you know, the fun times, the history that we had. The only thing that matters is that, because now I'm a conservative, so therefore you can look at
he sounds like he's just speaking based off of like a script.
If you take what you said, Shelly, if you take what Shelly said, now she said that her friend, now that her political stance has come out, some of her friends have said they don't, want to be friends with her. But this is totally different. He was with her in the present. They were getting to know each other. Yes. Something from her past came out. And then he was just like, you don't understand my blackness.
But this is the thing that is so personally upsetting to me about this, because what I have been observing lately over the past few years is this radicalization in the mainstream culture, this idea that's coming from critical race theory that says that people can only have relationships with each other through this power structure, this hierarchy of power. So that and for me personally, my two relationships, my late husband and my current partner, have been black men, right? So this idea that is the idea that is being pushed.
No.
Yeah. So the idea that is being pushed, that is being taught through this critical race theory, is that people who are different races or different cultures, they cannot understand each other. When he says, you don't understand my blackness, okay, well, first of all,
I'm black and I don't understand it.
Me being in a relationship, my late husband was black American, my current partner is African, right? That's a whole different thing in itself. But any person that you have a relationship with, you come from different backgrounds, you come from different upbringing, you have different characteristics and different personality. The relationship is about getting to know and understand the other person. And what they are saying, what the left is saying, and I mean they are explicitly saying, they are saying that two people of different races, different skin color, different ethnic background, they are saying it is impossible for those two people to have
Let me clarify that. And then they're saying that if it's a black person and a white person.
Right.
So two other ethnicities is not as big of a problem as it is with a black and a white person.
That's because of the power hierarchy.
Exactly.
So hypocritical too, because
power hierarchy. It's about, I mean, there is like, you've dated black men, but you would never know the experience that black men
but nobody
can know that. And then, but as it would be, like, as a single mother, I'm not a single mother, but as a single mother, a married mother would never know the experience of a single mother. It's all
right, and they also don't know the experience of you as a wife. Like, everybody has different experience.
Right, you don't know my experience. And the idea that for him, he considers it to be too much emotional labor, which is, let's be honest, that is Marxist terminology. He's following a script, right? That it is too much emotional labor to be in a relationship. That's what a relationship is. So it's this idea that everything is work, everything is unpaid labor, and that the idea of getting to know somebody who's a different race and understanding them as a human being, person to person, with everything, all of the differences that people have.
Has he not been to any stupid parties in his past? Like, is there not something that they could dig up about him too? It's
well, we
just
talked about it earlier. I was like, I would go to a party like that with you dressed up. I'm not gonna be a slave at the party.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
I'm gonna be the queen at the party.
Yeah, because it's dressed up.
That's what I was saying. If they had a party like that and it was just about the pomp and circumstance of that era, Now they have something where they got slaves and stuff and all that. That's something different.
If that were what she did and he's dating her, talk to her, have the conversation, have a difficult conversation. That's part of being in a relationship. But this idea that you just peremptorily cut off the relationship because a white person and a black person cannot understand each other, to me that is evil. It's an evil ideology.
This is not to compare this, but when you're a kid and you learn about Thanksgiving and all of that, and they have you dress up with the little feathers, ones a Native American, right? The next thing you know, somebody is gonna pull up like a preschool child photo and be like, "I cannot date you because when you were feathers."
I want to say this.
Culturally appropriate.
about this relationship or whatever it was, I think what he did was, I just think it was distasteful and
it was
low.
cowardly.
However, I will add this: no one is obligated to date anyone because you that's what dating is for, to see if you want to continue the relationship further. So he's not obligated to stay with her for any reason, and same for her. But what he based it on was just a bunch of bunk.
It's a scripted show. It's entertainment. Who knows if they would have canceled his contract if he dated her.
Well, because he came out and defended her at first, so I think it was just a mealy-mouthed way of trying to save face when he was getting heat in the
public eye. Look at Prince Harry. He defended his wife, and she's blackish.
Whatever. I mean, whatever. Be what you want to be. I told you, I'm a Native American. I'm Queen Sheba in my other life. Whatever.
All right. Well, we will continue to follow this story. I mean, it's like a no story now, but now,
right? Hired a lawyer.
That's the next story. So the host was fired, and now he's coming out with an attorney, and he said pretty much he's gonna let it all out.
And these are the tolerance.
He didn't do anything wrong.
No,
he's gonna be on Oprah's show telling the truth.
Yeah, where you silence or silence. Yeah. So we will look forward to that.
That was this.
All right. So now we have. What do you have for us today?
Sure. So this will kind of piggyback off of your point earlier when you started talking about welfare and things like that. So a little bit different, but we're going to talk about reparations and some of the recent bills that have passed. So there's always been an ongoing discussion and conversation about reparations. Recently, a lot of the BLM movements or the incidents that they based their movements upon have kind of spurred another discussion about reparations, specifically with the George Floyd case, and noted it was a horrific tragedy, but to this day, there is no evidence to suggest that it was a racially motivated case or racially related in any way, but that particular case started to bring up the discussion of reparations again. So we have a lot of different, it was coming from a lot of different places, but I'll just go through really quickly. So first, Democrat Texas Representative Sheila Jackson Lee. She's the lead sponsor of the reparations bill. It's H.R. 40. In summary, it proposes the creation of a commission to study and develop reparation proposals for the African Americans Act.
This is the U.S.
In the U.S. Yeah. So sorry, Democrat Texas Representative Sheila Jackson Lee in the U.S. Then you have Jen Psaki during a White House briefing. Before she circled back, she said that Biden would certainly support a study of reparations. He understands we don't need a study to take action right now on systematic racism, so he wants to take actions within his own government in the meantime. And then two more notable events. So first, we have just yesterday this occurred, and actually this is a little bit more, like, I can empathize with individuals looking at ways to remedy certain situations that are more directly like your grandmother, your great-grandmother,
I
like
agree.
More directly in line.
That's what reparations is intended to be.
So this first situation is kind of more like that. It's more understandable. But then the second item, which is the Oregon reparations bill, that's a little bit more
what's the first
questionable.
one?
Okay, so the first one, just yesterday, I'm going to just take this from the BCC article, but Evanston, Illinois, which is a suburb of Chicago, is to become the first city in the U.S. to pay reparations to Black residents who have suffered housing discrimination. So, in a 8-to-1 vote, they're going to distribute $25,000 to 16. This one's a little bit more understandable. So they're going to distribute $25,000 to 16 eligible Black households to use for home repairs and down payments on property. The funds are coming mostly from a new tax on legalized marijuana. I'm curious where else the funds are coming from, but that's the primary. It says Black Americans were disadvantaged by racist housing decisions, and to be eligible, residents must be a Black person who lived in Evanston between 1919 and 1969, or they need to be a descendant of such a person. The family must also have been a victim of discrimination in housing because of policies or practices in the city at that time. They're going to distribute about $10 million over the course of a decade. They said about 16% of the city's residents are Black.
So just because you lived on that time, just because you were born or your family was in that time period, you're going to get it because you were black.
No.
If they can prove you suffered from housing
right. So you have to. They have a 77-page report that details decades of segregationist and discriminatory practices in areas including housing, employment, education, and policing. So they've studied this extensively in that one, and it's not a federal. It's just that state. So they've identified this group of people, and they've seen that they're going to get reparations.
They've drawn the attachments, or what am I?
All the criteria.
Right,
they found people that have agreed.
Actually had a study.
Right. They
sort of like a class action suit almost.
No. Well, they're not suing anybody necessarily.
But basically, the way that will work, if you can prove damages, but you really do. This is the thing. The way that reparations work, the only way that they can work is there has to be a number of victims that is relatively small, that are easily identifiable, that are still living. There is a known perpetrator, and there is a limited time frame. You can't just, there's no way to say that there's a broad kind of generational reparations for things that happen throughout history. You have to be able to prove some kind of damages.
There were specifically 16 eligible black households that they have traced this.
Okay.
But that's Illinois.
No, that's Evanston. How are they paying for that one?
So primarily through a new tax on legalized marijuana. I'm not sure where the rest of the funds are coming from. Primarily through a tax on legalized marijuana. That's where that is primarily coming from. Now,
the reparations through legalized marijuana. So for these 16,
so they're using the money from the tax of the legalized marijuana in Illinois to fund these particular reparations for these individuals. Now, there's other types of reparations that are very questionable and where I have a lot of questions. So specifically, the Oregon Legislative Assembly Senate Bill 619, which was introduced by Senator Lou Frederick at the request of former Representative Tiffany Mitchell. So we're going to focus on, there's a 618, there's a 619, and then there are a few other parts, but 618 discusses in general, is there a case to be made for reparations? Then 619 says, if there's a case, how would that be done? And it discusses their outline for how it should be done. So we'll focus on these two main parts. First, the Department of Revenue shall establish a program to pay reparations to black Oregonians, is that how you say it? Who can demonstrate heritage in slavery and who submit an application to the department no later than December 31st, 2022. Now this is the part that's a little more mind-boggling. So the department shall pay to each eligible applicant the amount of $123,000 in the form of an annuity payable annually for the life of the applicant.
So it's a welfare pay. You're going to be getting like $2,000, like a tax refund,
per person,
like $2,000 a year
for the rest of your life.
And that's it. And you're going to just make people dependent on government programs again.
Which is kind of what you were talking with welfare, right? It's welfare is only when it is used the way it's supposed to be
for a small number of people for a limited time.
But everybody takes advantage of the system.
No, you have to have had identified as an African American on legal documents for at least 10 years.
So can Rachel Dolezal claim to have identified as that? Can she qualify? This whole thing about you've identified, we're just stretching out all of these identity terms. And I've seen that more and more people will say, like when Amazon and Google and whatever, they were highlighting black-owned businesses. They said they were highlighting businesses that identify as black.
It makes no sense.
Yeah, so now you can identify as African American.
Well, that's always the question. Who's funding
Who is funding this? Because I don't think it's equitable if you take one group of people to pay another group of people, and neither of these people were directly involved in
also I have a question,
slavery or a victim of it.
Why does Oregon feel that they have a responsibility to pay reparations for slavery when slavery was never legal under the Oregon Constitution? It was never legal under the territorial government of Oregon, and it was never legal under their Constitution when they achieved statehood. And in fact, they proposed an amendment to their state constitution that would legalize slavery, and it was voted down. Slavery was upheld in the Oregon Supreme Court as being illegal.
So this is still part of this CRT, this critical race theory, this idea of equity for black people in particular, but maybe minorities in general. So this is just this wave. this is going to destroy these cities, the coffers, the people who need it the most or need the services of the city won't be able to get the services that they need.
The big Democrat argument with the voter IDs, right? You don't have the documentation. A lot of them don't have the documentation. How can they put together this voter ID? So how are these people supposed to prove, right? In the inner cities that need it the most, how are they going to prove their ties to slavery? And also, what if you're a wealthy individual? What if you're already making 123?
It doesn't matter.
Right? Are you going to get that also?
It's a touchy subject because I mean, you have my problem with the whole situation is a lot of times these reparations are being paid by some federal government, and so the only way federal government creates revenue is by taxes.
Same thing for state governments.
Yes.
And so then you have, so how are they, so we're all actually paying.
We're paying.
Exactly.
People but it's just like in Evanston where they're using the tax money from marijuana sales, and in Illinois,
who smokes marijuana?
In Illinois, according to survey data, blacks are using marijuana and purchasing marijuana more than whites. So basically, black people in Evanston are paying for their own reparations.
But on the same way, you know, I do understand how some people can say, you know, but I guess this happens to all throughout history. You have grievances and things. But, you know, I just go back to the whole thing behind how you had the FBI and COINTELPRO and systemically targeting black nationalist organizations in the 60s and 70s, tearing down total communities. And this was done by the U.S. government.
But in that case, I mean, like, not that it was a good thing, but those were targeted, if you will. So if those communities or those people who were affected by that would have a legitimate grievance, I could maybe see that. But again, today we are all paying for that when it's still the government. The government only makes money by taxing the taxpayers.
And this is a pilot, I guess, framework for other states. We have California, New York, Vermont, and Pennsylvania. They actually have similar framework or similar programs that they're introducing, and it's like, all right, so Oregon of all states is piloting.
That's not any black people.
Whenever you hear black people in Oregon,
whenever you hear New York or California piloting something, you better believe that the rest of the country is going to.
Oregon is the hub of Antifa and of left-wing politics.
But you can identify. So I guess if you
there really are
anybody
two
can
questions with reparations. There's the moral question, and then there's the economic or the feasibility question. So, or the benefit question, right? So, is it moral, and is it actually practicable? Can you institute it? Who's paying for it? And so, on the moral question is, what is the moral responsibility of a state where slavery has never been legal, and in fact, it has been expressly illegal? What responsibility do they have to pay reparations?
I have a few proposals and a few questions. So first, with the question, what's the desired purpose of reparations? Is it to penalize individuals that were descendants of slave owners, right? Or is it to actually help the black community? Because if it's to help the black community, then there are other ways to help the black community, and investing directly in them in a way that is not reparations. The other thing
there has been $22 trillion spent in welfare spending since the Civil Rights era war on poverty that was explicitly intended as reparations to black communities, and it has had the reverse effect. It has devastated black communities because it has devastated them economically. It has stymied their economic growth. Black people in America, the poverty rates were cut in half in the decade prior to the war on poverty, and since then it has just been it's been barely moving.
Yes, barely moving. Like we said earlier, the dependency has increased. So it has not done.
It has incentivized single motherhood, single parent households, and it has disincentivized work. So it has actually had a devastating economic effect on black communities.
Also, here's a proposal. So we have Black Lives Matter. That is an advocate for the black community. How much money have they raised again?
Over $60 million.
I thought it was over $90 million in 1 year. So why don't they use some of that money as reparations? We also have Biden that just spent about $83 million, right? $83 million.
$1.9 trillion.
$1.9
on the new home.
Yeah.
Well, I'm talking specifically for all of the illegal migrants coming on the hotel. Right? So that's money that could have been moved elsewhere. elsewhere. Like all of this useless money spending.
But
and
this
also,
is my other question I have. Let's just say all this plays out. Will it be enough? Will it ever be enough?
Right, like when does it stop?
What will be enough?
all other cultures, the Japanese, the Jews, everyone else has gotten reparations.
No,
but they were in a
wait, I haven't even finished. Everyone else has gotten the reparations. So they're saying African Americans who were slaves and were brought over here not on our own will, what do we get?
But the African slaves who were sold into slavery were enslaved in Africa.
No,
so
they
that's
were
what.
servants. It doesn't.
No, they were enslaved
But
in
the
Africa.
first-
So, but the thing is, this goes back to the idea of how can reparations work? And when Japanese internment survivors received reparations payments, it was because those payments were made directly to
It was
the
more
people
like
who
the
were
Evans
victimized.
family.
It was not descendants, and you're not talking about a
What's going to happen is we're going to find out that I hope you might even be able to get reparations. We're going to find out a whole bunch of people who think that they're going to get reparations won't get reparations. The people who think that they will get reparations won't get reparations. So
I wonder.
I think it's just going to be more divisive, and it is not going to actually have a positive practical benefit.
All right. Well, on that note, we will move on to our next topic.
Always more to say.
I know.
We can have a whole segment of reparations.
Yeah.
Even Bernie Sanders was like, we shouldn't cut a check because a check is not going to do it.
I believe even Obama was against the practicality
He
of
was.
reparations.
Well, he even presented Obamacare as a form of reparations.
I mean, look at the stimulus.
Well, and he's not somebody that would be
pour right back into capitalism.
Receive reparations.
Well, now he said that he would have
But
done
anyways.
reparations except for the white supremacists in Congress who didn't support him. So
What
it's
about
all
always
revisionist
that?
history.
What about
It's
people
all
like the
revisionist
Irish
history.
that come here as immigrants who their descendants were slaves to another group of people? Are they now going to flip the
Slavery was universal.
Right, it's a universal thing.
Well, it was servantry. It wasn't slavery.
No, it wasn't
slavery.
Universal.
It was slavery.
Every country, every society in the
Every
world has
society
had
has been
slavery.
based on-
Yes.
Right.
But was it the same?
Yes, and it was
I don't
worse.
care which country
Oh
you were
my
in.
God,
If you're
in
enslaved
Brazil,
to
where
somebody
they
else,
were
somebody,
enslaving people,
chaining you and
cannibalizing
beating
them.
you, that's
Well, and also
Brazil came from the same Atlantic Straits slave trade.
Yes, but
It
and
started
there was a
in
Muslim
Africa
slave
as well.
trade, a very
And then the
profitable,
and then
if
the
you will.
Barbary Coast
Okay, got it. All right, we'll go on to the next topic.
All right, so we will move on to our next
The
topic.
Chinese enslaved people.
And
So
that-
yeah.
I mean, I wish I.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. All right. So,
I think the Japanese performing experiments
He's
on
just trying to
people
move
in
it
Japan.
forward.
We gotta stop. Yes, the Japanese did during
We did
World War II.
731.
During
Yeah.
World War II. Yeah. Okay, I'm sorry.
All right, what we got? Christopher Anderson.
Oh yeah, did
Yeah,
Chris
some-
comment? I told
Christopher
him to
Anderson.
comment.
Christopher, he said, it's not asking how it works. Let us worry about that. We're not kids. Stop helping us. We're not asking for an accountant.
Please stop helping us, Jason Riley.
I'm surprised
Please
he
stop
said that
helping
'cause I
us.
thought he was an advocate for
I'm surprised he will be
reparations.
having conversations.
Of course, there are distance, he says. We're not looking for something like reparations. Just pay the debt owed. SMH.
But see, the debt
We're not
from
asking
who?
for an accountant.
What is the debt owed?
And from who?
For bringing us
Who
over here. We didn't ask to
who
be over
pays
here.
the
I'm
debt?
glad I was born here. I'm glad I was born here and born on
But
this school.
you were
And I'm not-
already here.
Well,
Just to
I'm
make
glad.
clear, though.
Thank God. I'm glad.
There's still slavery that goes on in
Exactly.
Africa.
Yes.
And Africans and Portuguese and others started the slave trade that came to the U.S.
There were more
So-
slaves traded internally
that's
in
a
Africa
question.
than made it across.
Are we
the
also going to
transatlantic slave
track
trade.
which individuals came from black slave trader family? I mean,
Well,
that's
what about
you
the
could just go-
4,000
No, because
but anyway,
America,
blacks
it's
who own
only
slaves
the
too?
white
It's
people.
so
It's only the white
complicated
people.
that you cannot. You have to. The
it's
only
hard.
way
Yeah,
that
it's
it
very
works is when you
It is
have
complicated.
a direct perpetrator that pays reparations to a direct victim, and
Yes.
that has happened. There are cases of people like Henrietta Wood who were freed slaves, who then sued and they won. They won reparations payments.
You have to admit that the black people in America have had a whole history in America.
Yes.
We're not
They
talking
have,
about
yeah.
in Africa. We've had a rough history.
Yes,
And you have to
absolutely.
admit that it's traumatic to us.
Yes.
And then we have post-traumatic slave syndrome.
I believe that's true.
now-
I think
Yeah,
people
but-
have that.
You know,
I don't subscribe
Yeah, but
to it.
how
I think a lot of people
right,
do
but
have
that is
yeah.
the problem
I say
with the
therapy.
repar-
I say therapy could be.
But now they're
that is the
also
problem with
teaching
the
that in school. Like they're teaching you to have that in
Exactly.
schools
Yes,
to
they're teaching us
children
that, yeah.
who
I think
like they're going to teach children at 3. What is
continuing the
3 years old now? They're going to start teaching them about
continuing the slave mindset. It's continuing the grievance mindset.
When they were younger, I didn't teach them about slavery. I taught them that this is what we were in Africa.
Right.
This is how we. And now, I mean, they're like, we have friends of all, ethnicities.
Yeah. Hey, history through the perspective of every single culture is important.
But at what point do you say, okay, my great-great-great-grandfather may have been enslaved, but I am not a slave?
Yeah. And isn't that what they fought for?
Yes.
Right.
Isn't that what the whole at least even before that, but isn't that what the whole fight was about? To say that we are free.
To say I can stand on my own now. That was what Frederick Douglass said. He said, just leave us alone. Treat us freely, equally, and leave us alone.
Well, I think we said, like you said, there's a lot to go into it. It definitely won't be able to get into it right now. But
spend the whole day. How about this? We still have systemic racism that...
That's not good. Look, I get the moral argument.
Let's charge white liberals because they're the ones that instigated all of the slavery. Let's charge the white liberals for reparations.
Why don't we have the Democrat Party pay reparations?
Why don't we just give most people, give most people, if not everybody in America, write them a check, their own taxes anyway.
The Democrat Party
get them out the government, make the government smaller, and let people run their own lives.
Yep. Okay. Well, on that note, we'll end it there. One thing we do need to probably talk about or have a segment about is following directions. Because you all, I am literally about to flip this desk over. Okay, Jesus. I kept trying to move us on. But anyway, so
hot topic. We're all women. We need to submit.
Yeah. We're going to have a segment on follow directions.
Wait, we're not math wearers that don't follow directions.
All right, so we are moving.
In a mule.
Did Chris say that? He said it. Chris said it.
The 40 acres and a mule, if you follow the history of it, the true story, it was actually introduced by Republicans. The Republicans were the ones who said, hey, give them.
Yes.
They had a group of black people, former slaves, like, what do you want? Give us land.
Yes.
Give us,
And that absolutely should have been done at the time because those would have been direct reparations to the people who were injured.
Right, but you're saying that too much time
At
passed.
that time. Like, I don't have a farm for a mule. I ain't gonna get on no farm. I ain't milking a cow.
Right.
Look, I can understand when it's somebody's grandmother, somebody's great-grandmother, maybe even their great-great-grandmother. But when you start to go down the line, just like hundreds of years
I went to a restaurant, farm-to-table restaurant.
I'm not planting herbs.
But the idea of collective and generational reparations for one collective group of people in history injured another group, and so collectively they owe reparations to their descendants, it violates the basic primary tenet of the classical liberal principles of individual rights that America is founded on, that you are not responsible for the sins of your fathers, and you are also you do not carry the burden of victimhood.
Actually, that's
of
a
your
biblical, that's a
forefathers.
Well, not only that, but I don't think
it's a
they're trying to
Judeo-Christian
push. They're not trying to push it on a certain race. They're saying that the government owes this. But then if you say the government owes it, then we don't pay. Right.
The government is saying that because of your
your
ancestry that they were slave owners, but then you have to pay that burden. That is antithetical. That's antithetical to the biblical principle where you are not responsible for the sins of your father. Right. You're responsible for your own, but not someone else's, even if they happen to be related to you.
Mm-hmm. Right. Also, there's a lot of different... But it all says if you owe something, you want to pay it.
There's a lot of different types of reparations,
To whom? It has to be a...
Right. They're saying that the system of government who benefited from this.
But the government didn't benefit. The government did not own slaves, and the government wasn't benefiting. The South was impoverished.
What I'm saying is not benefited, but they are the fabric of all these systemic. They're the ones who put forth these racist.
The government was also the one that abolished it.
It's hard to fix.
But there's a grievance there.
But it's the government.
There's a grievance there. There's still something that was
there's always problems that come from creating policies based on
the ones you voted are the ones who try to keep the white liberals.
So how about the Democrat Party?
I agree with that.
Pay us.
Right.
Yeah. And the other thing is, every time you create policies based on race, you have problems. And now what are reparations? Policies based on race.
Our producer's going crazy.
I know. We have to cut this story. I'm really sorry.
All right, so we'll move on to your story, Taria.
Oh, look. Okay, we have a studio on this actually. So, first of all, happy spring, everyone.
Happy spring.
Secondly, we want to give a shout out to all the Aries.
Happy birthday,
Happy
her
birthday
dad.
to Xandria's father, Mr. Frank.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday. But guess what? Guess who's Bazak? We're going to... Guess who's Bazak? President Trump.
Oh, okay. You said Bazak. Okay, got it.
Bazak,
Okay. Got it. Come on,
I got you.
Shelly.
I got it.
ain't gonna get it. You
I'm gonna move to Oregon and identify as black and get my reparations. So.
We only need 2 years and 10 years.
Race-based expectations.
Look, President Trump, who was booted off of Twitter and Facebook and all the other social media platforms, he's teasing us with a possibility of launching his own social media platform.
And we'll get a lot of people on that platform.
Look, so he told Fox News contributor Lisa Booth in a podcast, I'm doing things having to do with putting our own platform out there that you'll be hearing about soon.
All right.
Within the next 2 or 3 months, no other further details, within the next 2 or 3 months, we're going to say that it's going to happen. And he's,
Teasing it, like you said.
it's a tease, but
He's
reach
an
out to me. I can
entertainer.
help. It's a tease.
Reach out to me. I can help.
It's a tease, but he's saying like they're having meetings. Jason Miller, who's his senior advisor, says that there have been meetings with teams, and the move will redefine the game. So we're going back to not having censorship.
All right.
And
Amen.
having our own platform. I'm with it.
I'm for it on air.
Here we go with
for it.
Poppin' Politics. Like, we've been censored. We trying to go against the narrative of the left, and we need our own platform. And who else to do it? But look,
Let me ask this though. I mean, do you believe that this is a good look for President Trump? Do you believe
Yes.
this is what?
Yes.
I think it makes a lot of
You think this makes, if he does decide to run, this would be something that
I'm for
would
1A.
get him
I'm
elected?
for 1A. Period. I don't care who does it. I'm for freedom
Well,
of
I
speech.
know we are all for freedom of speech, but does this help him by getting back
It doesn't
on
hurt.
social
I don't think
media?
it hurts him in any
I don't think
way.
it hurts.
he loves the attention.
And he'll get
I'm
it.
not talking about him
He's been
loving
doing
it.
his press
He will
briefing.
get it.
A lot of
Not only that, it's about the fact that we're being censored.
Yes.
We're being censored. He was being censored. So it's not, I was going to say I don't think it's about him, but I mean, it is about him. But it's about everyone too. Like,
And
having
not,
his own
if he
social
came
platform.
back in 2 or 3 months, he's going to be the lead news stories more than Biden and
He
Jen
already
Psaki.
is.
Yeah.
He already is.
But is that a good thing?
Yes.
I don't think so. I don't think so.
He already has been using his press releases to tweet essentially.
Yeah,
Because
but
he
it
was
has
sending
to
out
be
basically
a
his
good
little
thing.
Twitter statements, and then he was getting the press to retweet them because he was putting them out as press releases, which I thought was just brilliant. It was
Why
like
don't you think it's a good
troll.
thing?
I think it's a great thing that he's starting a platform that would create free speech. But as far as him being elected, as far as for the party, I don't think it's a good thing because it takes us back to him and the comments and all that. And again, I don't think that is a good look.
You think he's going to
for
start
it.
controversy?
I think it takes away
he's
from the
gonna be controversial, by the way.
issues. I think it takes us away from starting new. We don't know if he's going to run again. So for the party, for us to move forward onto 2024, I don't think it's a good
But it's like a personal choice if people want to utilize it or not.
Right, but I mean, again, having him in the headlines, having him, say whatever he wants to say, picking fights with people. I mean, like I said, I mean, if we're going into an election season and we have, not to say if he doesn't run, let's say we have someone else run, and then he's tweeting or whatever they're going to call on a new social media platform, I just think it hurts us. I honestly think he hurt us in Georgia.
Well, the party. He did hurt the party.
With him saying that people shouldn't, that the votes were the race was stolen,
basically,
and people decided not to go turn out, and those senators who people overwhelmingly thought that they were going to win. And then you had him going down there and always on social media saying the whole thing was stolen.
Well, he was pushing so hard. He did that rally. I mean, when Eugene Boycott went to that rally, he was down there in Georgia with some of the other Republicans from Maryland that went down to campaign for those 2 Senate seats. And he said they got on the bus to go to the rally site. It was so crowded. The bus had to park over a mile away. They all got out and walked. They walked like an hour or something to get to the rally site, and then they're there for like 3 hours watching President Trump. He said it was incredible, like the energy and everything. So he was there campaigning for them.
But that wasn't mostly.
I would give him 50-50 on the Georgia election. I think he could have said more to push people to go vote. But I still stand behind him taking his case that the election was stolen. So I understand what you're saying. However, if he comes out with a social media platform, I don't think it's going to hurt the party. I just don't.
I think it would. And not only
divided the party, but they're the Trump supporters, and then there's the Republican Party. And the Trump supporters are the ones that, who
are part of the Republican Party.
I mean, they are, but it's a whole. They're the radicals.
Well, there's also.
I think it's the other way around.
I think one Trump who stormed the Capitol.
But
a very small percentage.
Those were some Antifa people there. There was that one guy, that John Sullivan guy, who got arrested.
And the people who did that, even if they were Trump supporters, that they were wrong. They should not have done that. That was wrong.
That was very
Like for me, I'm a Trump supporter. I'm not a Republican Party supporter. I am a Trump supporter. So for me, I think both parties shifted left this year. One for the better, one for the worse. I think the left went up the cliff and over the edge. There's just too much. And then I think the conservative party, I think Trump enabled the party to become more diverse.
He did. The numbers show that.
People. So I'm part of this. Not that the Conservative Party wasn't diverse before, but it became increasingly more diverse of thought. Yeah. And I'm definitely more in the Trump supporter.
I agree. Republican, and I can't say a Trump supporter, but I was a Republican, but I appreciate Trump. I appreciate his, you call him an alpha male. I appreciate the fact that he's, he says what he says, and he's, savage, and he's for the facts. And most people don't realize that he really is. I've even watched, even with covering this story, I watched some of the news stories that he had before, and I'm like, oh, well, he's saying, it is, kind of true, but especially as it relates to media and propaganda.
I'm a Republican, and I was a Trump supporter up until he lost the election. And then with him, I'll be honest with you, I was pissed that we lost the Senate seats in Georgia. And I do feel that it was because of Trump. I feel it's because of what he said as far as not getting telling people that the election was a hoax and that we lost, he really won. And I think he did it, and because people were so enraged with him, and the left got their people out because they just did not want Trump to win. So I think it was like a combination of the two. So I actually kind of have been enjoying this time when he's been off social media.
It has been
because it's just been a little. It's just CNN's ratings have gone down because they don't have Trump to talk about. I'm happy for that. Then you don't have him kind of taking up all the room.
I think it's been peaceful because the media are not allowed to 46 is not having press conferences, so the media not allowed to ask him those hard questions. They've been banned from the border. So I think it's been quote unquote peaceful in that sense because we don't know a lot of things that are really going on behind.
I was going to say, it's been hectic.
And when he talks, news not reported.
I think the press is trying to present it as if everything is just status quo and back to normal, but there's a storm that's been. Look at all of the legislation and the executive orders and everything. But I get what you're saying. On the surface, it seems like everything is just nice and quiet. But that's why I think we needed Trump to really shake things up because otherwise people were not paying attention to what was going on and what the left was doing.
People did pay attention to what he was saying.
I used to always say that his random stuff though. It wasn't. What was it like? Was it really important, or was it just banter?
Well, I think it brought attention. It was entertainment.
Right.
It was entertainment, definitely.
Okay.
But I appreciate that.
Yeah. Like I said, I don't want anybody to send me an email. I'm a Trump supporter.
He did.
I campaigned for Trump.
He exposed. Yeah, he exposed that. But the good that he did for our country overall, from unemployment to the employment in the black community to different things with the border, the international or the foreign policies. I look at those things more than I look at him being made out of a caricature, if you will.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think he had great policies, and I thought he was, as far as that. But I thought he had great policies and things like that. But as far as
you just didn't like his tweets,
right? I just didn't like his tweets, and at this point, I want to win. I want to win in 2024.
Yeah, but I think what also happened was that he did that was very useful was that he exposed also a lot of Republicans who were just wolves in sheep clothing. He exposed a lot of establishment Republicans who were just ossified, who were lining their own pockets, who were just in it for themselves, and who were also Democrat-like. There was a lot of pandering to the left. Republicans, I think, because Republicans were just interested in winning, and they were so willing to sell out on values just to pander to the left for votes. And I think what Trump did, and this new Republican movement that has come in, and this groundswell of people saying, that's brought all of these different diverse people together saying, wait, we agree. Freedom of speech, liberty, our Second Amendment rights, the ability to sit together, people of all different backgrounds and races, to be able to talk to each other on a human basis, on an equal footing, right? That these are American principles of liberty and equality and justice.
He showed that we can win on those principles. He showed that we can win on the values, that you don't have to be a rhino. You can win on American values. That
true conservative principles.
Exactly.
Look, I'm going to join it. If he comes out with 2 to 3 months with I don't know what it'll be.
Sign me up.
Trump book. I don't know what it's going to be, but just for the sake of entertainment, I want to see what he's going to say every now and then. Eat the meat, spit out the bones. I don't have to be engulfed in the situation, but I'm here and there because I'm just on Facebook. Like I'm not even on Instagram and all that.
I don't necessarily think it'll hurt him.
I don't either.
I just don't.
Well, on that point, we are at time. So we want to thank you all for watching, and we will see you next week.
Trump all the way. Boycott says Trump all the way. The old Republican Party is outdated.
Right. Live a life of purpose.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And God bless you. Good night.
Good night.